Women are
Yeah.
capable. We just got to
Yeah.
show our capabilities.
That's it. Not be
Yeah.
afraid
And
to do it.
Exactly.
so it's not discreet. They could clearly see you crawling on the floor. But
Hilarious.
it's true. Women are very capable. And I think we have
Sorry.
this is what happens.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our first interview session with two of our wonderful guests here, Kelly and LeeAnn. In a moment, I'll get them to introduce themselves. But we are doing this video as part of our Women's Month features. So these two lovely ladies are our recipients of the Women in Leadership Fund from Rugby, Ontario. So whoever wants to go first, Kelly, do you mind just introducing yourself for us?
Sure. My name is Kelly Zacny. I am living here in Collingwood, Ontario, and just became president of the Georgian Bay Titans Rugby Club as of this year. I played high school rugby and I played for a year at Guelph University, 3 years at Humber College, and I played club for the Caledon Cavaliers. That's my gist.
Nice. LeeAnn?
Sure. Hi, my name is LeeAnn Napiorkowski, known in the world as Nappy unless I'm in trouble. And I'm the president of the Canadian Jacks Unified Rugby Football Club. I'm also the VP development of the Lanark Highlanders. And like Kelly, I played high school rugby at Laurentian High School and at Brock University, Carleton University, Ottawa U, and then played provincially and for Canada at one point.
Wow, we've got a long list of accomplishments here between the two of you. So yeah, I'll refer to you as Nappy then, because you're not in trouble today, I promise. Okay, so I think first, just kind of an icebreaker here. I think we can get started. You can get started on building whenever you feel like getting started. This first question is for both of you. I mean, you kind of already answered it in your introductions, but just kind of to hear more about what age you got into rugby and, where'd you play and just kind of what that was like for you as a young female player coming up in the rugby world.
I wanted to play football. I didn't even really know rugby existed, to be honest with you, when I started high school. And I wanted a physical sport where I could tackle people. And unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to play with the boys, even though I feel like I probably could have crushed most of that team. It wasn't allowed. So lucky enough, a teacher who started that year that I started grade 9, was a rugby coach, and he couldn't believe that there was no rugby team. And he said, well, the boys have football, so I'm going to start a girls rugby team. And that's where I got started. And I was the last year to have grade 13. So I got to play 5 years in high school. And I just became obsessed with it, again, because I wanted to tackle. And then I just fell in love with the beauty of the sport, because there's a position for everybody, every shape, every size. And everybody has a job, and everybody gets to touch the ball, gets to tackle, gets to pass, gets to kick. Like, there's just a part for everyone. And I ended up being captain of my team and won player of the year. And it was an incredible experience. And then I ended up playing club for the Caledon Cavaliers back then. But yeah, it all started because I wanted to smash people, and I just lucked out that a teacher started the rugby team, and I fell in love with it.
No, that's great that he saw that something was missing. He saw kind of a discrepancy there and wanted to tailor to, to women and girls.
Yeah,
who,
for
like
sure.
you said, have an opportunity to smash into people, why not?
Yeah.
Nappy, how about you?
Yeah, I'm a little bit older. I could have taught Kelly, so
No.
I started teaching that last year when OAC didn't exist anymore. So
Oh, really?
yeah. So, similar story. I had been a soccer player all my life and touched football and volleyball. Never got to actually hit anybody. So I've been surrounded by some pretty phenomenal female athletes here in Ottawa for a long time. So Sherry Tanner was a student teacher at my school, and she's a former national team player. She started up a rugby program for us, and it was sevens. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not built for sevens. I'm more of a 15s gal, but started playing sevens. And after I got to hit people, it was pretty awesome, and didn't want to go back. So from there, I went on to the Ottawa Banshees, and again, surrounded by some pretty phenomenal role models and athletes. Chantal Herchebys, played against Sherry Sparling, some really amazing athletes that promoted the sport and promoted women in the sport, and set a stage for all of us to want to be like them. So it was pretty cool to be introduced to a sport later in life at 18. That's an older time to enter a sport, but with rugby, you can go further even though you haven't played it before.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And you're just constantly inspired in the community. So this next question is just for LeeAnn. We'll get to Kelly, don't worry. This one's for Nappy. Just kind of how you got involved in VP development for Lanark, and just kind of how that's been, and what motivated you to get involved in that way, as you said, because you played for so long, and then what kind of made you want to get into more development?
Yeah, I'm a high school teacher, so I'm what's called an inclusion teacher. I work with students with special needs who are neurodiverse. So development's always been kind of something that I'm passionate about. I moved out to Carleton Place, which is just outside Ottawa, 2 years ago, but I started with the team about 3 or 4 years ago. So we built a pretty amazing clubhouse, and the club has existed for over 20 years, but we haven't had the opportunity to grow like we've needed to. So part of my job was to try and help the club get a little bit bigger, and using resources that I've developed over the years to try and help bring attention to our sport within the community. So we started our minis program the first year, and we started off with 50 kids, which was awesome. And we've grown to almost 100 this year. So the development is working, and the community has really embraced our sport. And we're really blessed to have a wonderful community that wants to see our sport grow.
You also mentioned earlier in your introduction that you're involved in the Canadian Unified Jacks. Can you tell us just a little bit more about your role with them, and just your general vision for this club, and what makes it special?
Absolutely. 2016, the Women's World Cup in Ireland, they did the players did some playing with athletes with neurodiversity. So they were holding clinics to do some rugby development, and I saw that on Twitter, now X, and I thought that was pretty amazing. So I contacted Paul Hunter at Rugby Canada and said, can we do this here? And he said, yep, let's do it. So our first year we did a jamboree at Carleton University, where I also coach. I've just retired from there, but I did coach, and they embraced it wholeheartedly. In our first year, we had 85 athletes with disabilities, kids with service dogs, kids in walkers, kids with Down syndrome, autism, global developmental delay, all playing with our university players. So that's where we started. And then we pushed to like a monthly gathering, I guess, for lack of a better term. And we found a need and a group of players that really wanted to be part of the rugby world. So what we did was start up a program. There wasn't one that existed, so we started one. And in 2022, we made it official with the starting of the Canadian Jacks Rugby Football Club. And ever since then, we've just been keeping on. COVID put a little ding in our plans, as it did for everybody, but we kept on going, and we're growing slowly but surely. And we have a fantastic group of athletes who just want to play like everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. That's so great to hear, and that's some really great development there. Like you said, I think Kelly said it earlier, that rugby's for everyone, and I think the Unified Jacks is exactly that. It just kind of shows that it is in fact for everyone. So congratulations, like that's really great, awesome. And very excited to see how much further you can take it. Kelly, you recently took the role as president at Georgian Bay Titans. Can you just
Yeah.
kind of walk us through how that experience has been? Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
And yeah, just similar to Nappy, kind of what's your vision with Georgian Bay?
So one of my big things is rugby is such a short season. We do have a few sevens teams that play kind of a bit in the fall, but it's sort of like May, June, July, which is when most teams end, a few trickle into August, and then rugby stops, which kind of sucks because to me, like I look on Instagram and I see Balmy Beaches and Aurora and Oakville and Barrie and all these teams, and they're doing year-round training. They're still involved, you know, everybody's still very much thinking about rugby year round. And here, you know, we're at a ski hill, so a lot of people are into skiing, a lot of people are into sports, hockey and stuff. But I'd like to see it be something that's even a community involvement year round that keeps people building that camaraderie, building that community around this incredible sport. We have people in this town. I mean, we have people from Australia, New Zealand, England, Ireland, Scotland, Samoans. We have like a huge insanely talented group of people here, people who played for the Canadian national women's team, people who played in Europe. I'm sure a lot of clubs are like that, but for a small town, for Collingwood, like we have ample amount of experience in this town and a great group of people. And rugby is one of those sports, a lot of sports, but rugby especially is, if it's in your genes, man, you know your parents are putting you in that sport and it's trickling down, and everybody wants their kids to play rugby. So it's just to build the program. We run U6 all the way to U18. Being a female, obviously last year was the first year we had an all-female team, U14s. So this year we're trying to make a huge campaign to get a U16 team and a U18 team for the girls. Whether or not it'll happen, fingers crossed. We are actually part of one of the clubs, I believe out of 7, that got picked for the Let's Play Rugby Fund. And our campaign was particularly geared towards girls. And so we had an info night last week and a lot of girls came out, and we're going to run an 8-week program and try and get at least 20 new girls to come out and participate in rugby. So it's interesting enough, when we asked girls like why they played, we wanted a couple of girls to speak up and say like, why do you play? And a lot of them, it comes down to they're angry or they want to smash people, they want to hit people, and I'm like, all right, well, this is the sport for you. So anyways, yeah, I just like to build the sport in the community, build it especially with girls. It's the only contact sport, really, team sport, that girls can be in contact, because I know even in hockey, girls aren't allowed to hit. So you know, it's a beautiful sport, and I'm just fresh eyes and ears, and I've hit the ground running. It's been a lot of work, needless to say, and then my involvement with Rugby Ontario and being part of the Women in Leadership, of course, has been awesome. But yeah, just trying to grow the sport and grow the community as well.
Yeah, awesome. You both mentioned a few kind of key takeaways or lessons that you've learned from the sport, but is there anything that you would say, you know, you're talking to a new person in you know, someone who's trying to join the community, and say, you know, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned from being involved in the sport?
For me, rugby's taken me around the world, literally. I've got the chance to play in Scotland and England and Australia, and every time I've gone somewhere, the rugby people take care of me. So it's more than a sport. It's more than a lifestyle. It's not a cult, but it's kind of cult-like. wherever you end up in the world, you say you play the sport, and someone will find you, someone they know who will find you a job, find you a couch, find you somewhere to lay your head at night and take care of you.
100%. I totally agree with that. It's the camaraderie of it, you know, you can go anywhere in the world, and if you run into somebody and say you've played rugby, you're gonna have a conversation. Next thing you know, you're having a beer or you're having a barbecue at their house or something. Like, it's a combat sport and it's a battle on the pitch, but man, the community that builds around it and how you come together afterwards that's just the beauty of it, right? And the other aspect is there really is a role for everybody. You know, if you want to be a basketball player, you better have height on your side. Yes, there are a few people that have, you know, made it with not height on their side, but rugby, you could be short, tall, thick, thin, fast, slow. There is a position for absolutely everybody.
I think that's super important for women too, especially young women, because you don't, there's so many young women that think that if they're bigger that they can't play a sport. And I was never celebrated for my speed, but I was able to do things differently on the field, and that encouraged me to keep going and being able to play at the highest level I possibly could. Whereas, and age-wise too, if kids come in at 18, they're able to still progress to a reasonably high, if not the highest level. So I think that's huge for us to advertise to, especially female athletes. It's hard to get a girl going if she doesn't feel like she has something to offer, that she'll be included. And being able to be big, small, fast, slow, anything on the pitch, I think that's huge for women.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, that even in a way you would say, oh, well, rugby, you have to be big and strong. But at the same time, you can also be small and nimble and be super speedy. You can be big and super speedy. It doesn't really matter. And I think that was kind of one of the biggest motivators, especially as a young girl in high school, you know, who isn't insecure about their body. You know, you're going through puberty and all that whole mess of things as a young woman. And to find something where you can go in without having to fit into a prototype of a body, you know, how to look or how to feel, and all bodies are accepted. I think, like you said, it's huge for women and girls to stick around too, to want to be part of a sport. I actually had a question. I don't think I know this. If either of you have coached women and girls before, obviously you've played with women, but if you've had any experience coaching, and if you haven't, just, you know, what do you think is the approach?
I think I have a unique perspective. I've spent most of my career coaching men. So I did coach the Ontario, it was 2016, the Ontario U18 girls team with Rebecca Delaney. And I don't think that I approach things differently. I think my background in special education kind of impacts that, where you meet the athlete where they're at, not necessarily their gender, not necessarily their abilities, but wherever they're at themselves. So for myself, I approach the athlete based on who they are and what they need that day, not necessarily by gender or by a philosophy that I would paint the whole team with. So I kind of try and adjust mine to the player themselves.
Honestly, having coached a lot of rugby, I just sort of fill in where needed, so to speak. And it is predominantly, like say with my son's team, the U12, a lot more boys. But I do coach girls in other sport. And same thing, like Nappy said, like it's everybody, whether male or female, are individuals and they all have strengths and weaknesses. You know, sometimes you deal with more emotions on some ends and more ego on other ends. But again, that you approach everyone as an individual, and then you try and see how they can work and bring all their individual aspects as a team and make that kind of all fit together.
I started something up last year with my university athletes of asking them where they're at that day with their mental health, with their physical health, stress level. And that adjusted how I worked with the team that day. If they've had a really stressful week and it's all exams and they're ready to tap out, we're not going hard on them. That's not fair. We wouldn't want that done to us. So checking in on where my athletes were at and what they needed that day, I think was a very powerful tool that I learned that I'll be taking forward, because you can't push if they're not able to be pushed.
No. even with young kids, some days you swear is like, is it a full moon, or like, did you guys eat more candy today? Did you not go outside at school?
Indoor
And then,
recess, that's what it is.
yeah, like you read the room, and some days I remember saying to some girls, like, which one of you showing up tonight? Is it calm and cool, or is it like crazy? And then you feed off of what their energy is for that day. And sometimes if the group is collectively crazy, you know, you need to get them to burn energy, or have a couple fun games to break it up, because yeah, some days, you know, just there's something going on in the air, and you've got to adjust accordingly based on what the vibe is of the team or the individuals. So
do you feel like this was, you know, Nappy, is this something that you kind of just came up you know, on your own? Is it maybe that when you were being coached, is it something that your coach kind of instilled in you, or maybe it was something that was missing in your playing experience? You know, Kelly, you can also speak to that. Like, is this born from experience from missing out on it, or is it born from inspiration from a previous coach or leader that you had in your life?
I think a little bit of each. Like in education, we try to get the feeling of the kids when they come into your classroom, and how the day's going to go, and what we need to do to help each individual student as much as we can that day. So I think I transferred some of that just from my education background. But yeah, growing up as an athlete, I don't think many people asked me how I was as I was playing and as I went through higher level rugby. Not to say that I had bad coaches. I had awesome coaches, and I love every second of time that I played. But it was different time, different place, different stressors in people's lives. And I think it's super important for us to remember that everybody's human. And you know what, coaches are going to have bad days, players are going to have bad days. And we just need to be cognizant of the other when we're playing. We can't just focus on ourselves. And I think that's a really important part of team sport, is supporting those who are around you and making sure that they're okay in order for you to be okay and for the team to be okay.
Has there ever been, you know, kind of a moment in your leadership life rather than your player life where, you know, you haven't exactly felt heard, and kind of how you overcame that, if you addressed it with a person or with the group who didn't make you feel heard, and just what advice you would give to other young women trying to kind of carve their way, especially, you know, and let's call a spade in a male dominated sport.
my whole life has been in a male dominated world. Obviously, I'm in combat sports. Boxing is pretty male dominated. Jiu-jitsu, I am, up until maybe a month ago, one of the only female that rolls with men in our club. There's been one female recently joined. Boxing, same thing. I'm one of a very few females. Rugby, you know, my whole executive board is all men except for me, which feels good to be in the leadership the leadership role. So yeah, my whole life it's just been in male dominated fields, and what you have to do is just never back down, man. Just you have to be you have to believe in your personality and your abilities, and know that you can do what you want to do and be strong about it. And you know, don't take no for an answer. Everybody's still human, man or woman. Everybody is still a human being, and we have every right to be where we are, as long as we have the ability to do the job or to do whatever it is. We have the right to be there. So just keep pushing forward. And that's one of the greatest things to me, is being a part of combat sports and being in male dominated industries is super empowering. So I encourage women to do it, because it feels damn good to walk into a room and feel confident about yourself and your abilities. Never back down, ladies.
I agree wholeheartedly. In the coaching world, I often get, are you a girlfriend of one of the players? Are you the mother? Are you the athletic therapist? Are you every female role except for coach?
Wow.
And I'm quite often the head coach with male assistant coaches and referees. opposition coaches will always go to the male assistant coaches first.
Right?
So that's frustrating. Taken that on the chin a few times. And in fact, I've gotten good for you a few times as the, oh, good for you coaching. Good stuff. So you can either let it get to you or you can try and affect some change. So I firmly believe you have to see it to be it. So I think more women need to see women coaching men in every sport. And we're starting to see that in the NFL. We're starting to see that overseas in soccer clubs. It's essential that women start getting a role coaching men because we have lots to offer.
Yeah.
I was told early in my career that if I want to go anywhere, that I need to start coaching women, and I found that extremely frustrating from a development perspective. So it's not that I don't like coaching women. I've had some success in the area of coaching men, and I really enjoyed it. And I don't like to be pigeonholed into something just because you told me that I have to. So that's I'm a little bit pig-headed that way. So I guess advice to women is just don't be quiet. You'll be labeled as a troublemaker, and troublemakers are okay. You don't have to be rude about stuff. You don't have to be ignorant. You can still work within the system, but typically when you're told that it's not for you, maybe it is. Maybe there's just a little bit of intimidation going on, and people aren't necessarily ready for you to be there yet. But just keep on trucking and keep on doing what you do well. Don't let people tell you no.
Yeah, so all great advice, honestly. You know, and not just for women, just for anybody who's just kind of looking to break. You know, I think the never back down is really just a good piece of advice for anything. If you believe it, you can make it happen. And my next question, kind of last question, is well, it's a double question. The first one is, you know, has there been a moment in your career as a player, as a leader, where you're like, man, like this is what younger me always dreamt of, or always like, or man, if younger me had seen me doing this, like, you know, she'd be so proud of me, or she'd be so blown away by how far I've come. Has there just like been a moment for you yet?
Good question.
No, that is a good question.
Yeah.
I'm still so young. I don't know if I'm there yet. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like for me, development is a huge thing. I'm always developing, and I just don't stop. And so I feel like younger me would be pretty proud that I'm still, you know, we just expanded our gym here. We're hosting our first amateur boxing show. We're going to be hosting here the girls' rugby AV clinic, specifically in my gym. So I think building things like that, my younger self would be impressed with, because I've continued to take the things that I loved as a kid, and I'm still progressing and building and learning and developing. Doing the Women in Leadership course is awesome. You know, I was valedictorian in high school. I captained a lot of my teams, and so I'm still working on becoming a leader and having leadership roles, which I think is pretty cool, from being, you know, in elementary school to now being almost 40. I think that's one thing that I could, my younger self would be like, yeah, girl, like keep going after it. Yeah, I think that's one aspect for me, is just continuing to be a leader, and especially having young kids and having a boy and a girl, that my girl can see the qualities that I'm developing, and also my son can see the qualities of a woman, and a woman being in a leadership role. So both a boy and a girl can learn from that. So that's important to me.
Winning championships is great, and we've done that at different with different teams. I think building better humans is always part of my coaching mantra, and that if you leave a program that I've worked with you in, that you've become a better human by the end of it. And I'm very lucky to have most of my high school players come back and help with our high school team. And one of my colleagues now is one of my former high school players, and he's taken on the women's team at St. Peter in Ottawa. And proud mama moment to sit and watch him take over practices and have other athletes come back and work with our crew and see their development through something that I worked with them with. And that, in my mind, it makes me really happy to see the work that I did years ago coming to fruition with a new generation of athletes, because rugby is definitely a sport that you owe something back. It gives you so much, so you owe something back to the sport. So when I'm able to see some of my athletes truly embrace that, it's a wipe a tear away moment.
For sure.
Yeah. No, definitely. And just to kind of cap off, what are you most excited for, either for yourself going forward as a woman in leadership, and also just what are you most excited for in rugby, in women's rugby? We've got the next Women's World Cup coming up soon. Big strides in sevens, big strides in Six Nations as well, overseas, just everywhere. The sport is growing and women are going with it. And just what are you most excited for?
I'm excited to see that women's rugby is growing around the world, and that World Rugby has taken initiative to put more women on council, in decision-making positions, just improving the outreach of rugby in general, because it is a phenomenal sport, and both men and women should be playing on equal playing fields. And so I'm happy to see that there's so much growth for sure. On the community level, I'm excited to be in this position, and like I said, in 5 years, come talk to me, maybe I'll be burnt out. But right now, I've hit the ground running, and I'm excited just to build the sport in my community. And I'm happy that Rugby Ontario actually is taking a lot of initiative. I don't have, maybe Nappy has a bit more experience with Rugby Ontario and their history, but to me it seems like just this year alone a lot has changed, and a lot has changed on the board at Rugby Ontario. So it seems like they're moving in the right direction in terms of just the organization in general, but also the organization in respect to building women in the sport, which is phenomenal to see. But again, I don't have a big history, so it just appears to me that this is new for this year, and a lot of things are coming down the pipe, which is fantastic. So yeah, I'm just excited to build this community, to keep the sport going, to see where women can go. And hey, I mean, the ultimate thing would be to see one of the kids come out of our community and play at a high level, and that's it. You just want to push these kids as far as they can go, and give them the opportunities to build and grow and see how far they can get.
Yeah, for me, seeing the growth of the PWHL and seeing the excitement with that, I'm hoping that kind of excitement continues. Ottawa hosted the Pacific Nations Cup Pac-4 last year in Ottawa, and that was amazing. The support the women had here was phenomenal. If we can capitalize on that and grow that excitement, I think that's amazing. From another angle, I was so lucky to play with people like Colette McCauley, Maria Gallo, Joss Barrio, and seeing them as domestic players and domestic coaches, getting a chance to work at that national team level, that's huge. Women coaching women is awesome. I'd love to see some women coaching men in Canada soon at the national level. But even someone like Rue Chinto, I got to play with Rue many years ago as well, and she's running the Women in Leadership courses, and being able to see Canadians doing that stuff and having someone to aspire to, I think is so important for the next generation of girls. When you see someone from your neighborhood, you see someone from your country doing all of those things, and you put yourself in that position, I can do that. If you don't see that, it's harder for you to envision that. And I think that's something that I think we can really work on the next little bit.
women are very capable, and people just need to recognize, and we just need to step up and get in those roles. And I think we have a lot to offer, and people will see. I know even myself just getting on the board this year, people can see women can bring a lot of different skills to the table, and skills that are often needed. And not saying it's a man versus a woman thing, but we often just times have character traits or personality traits or organizational skills or multitasking skills, or we just have a different perspective, and we have a lot to bring to the table. So don't be afraid to go out there and go after what you want, because we have a lot to offer.
Multitasking skills for sure for the two
Yes.
of you compared to me. Doesn't apply to everybody.
3 of them.
Yeah, so
that also comes with being a mother.
Yeah.
And a teacher. I know what the kids are doing back home. I know it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any last words there, Nappy?
No, I think I'm really happy to have had this opportunity, because growing up pre social media, like my playing days were all before things were highlighted and easily accessible. So we didn't have the opportunity to be highlighted at that age. There weren't player profiles up on Instagram. We didn't have TikTok. We didn't have any of that stuff. Yes, I'm that old. So it's cool to have an opportunity to be able to speak to future leaders and future players. And I just hope that they don't think their voice doesn't get heard, and make sure that things that are important get heard, and that you bring up things that bother you, and you celebrate things that are successful. We don't always have to just complain about the bad stuff. Let's celebrate the good, and let's make sure that everyone hears about the good, and we share best practices, and we try to help each other out. And especially as women, I think it's important that instead of putting each other down, we build each other up, and make sure that when Kelly's successful, I'm successful. When Sam's successful, I'm successful too. And we share that experience with each other, so that everyone can be successful together.
Yeah, for sure.
No, really, couldn't have said it better myself from both of you. Just really inspiring words. And thank you so much for hopping on today. And if you're both willing to show what you made, because I'm not going to show what I made.
I got mine.
We'd love to take a look. Oh, wow.
I got a dog.
This is really impressive.
This is yours.
Oh, and they love.
Oh, I broke it.
Oh, no. It's okay.
I fixed it.
I got a party penguin elephant.
Very cool.
Oh,
they're going to a party.
I think I saw those and I was like, should I get this? And I said no. And now I'm stuck with, I don't even know what this is, to be honest.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. Maybe for next time. There's no better way to have ended this interview.